Good evening, Steeler fans. Welcome to Wednesday night and another episode of Know Your Enemy. I'm your host, Geoffrey Benedict. With me, as always, the one and only Shannon White. Shannon, how are you doing tonight?
I am awesome. Awesome. Just talking to Jeff before we started here and just getting excited just talking to him, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Just for people at home, our guest today is also named Jeff. I'm Geoffrey Benedict. I'll often go by Jeff.
Correct. I do have to clarify that I spelled the right way, so everyone's clear. I'm going to throw that gauntlet right out. No.
We're gonna get into some sore subjects here pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah, we are know your enemy right out of the gate.
Yeah. In the interest of friendliness here, I'll just introduce our guest. From Buffalo Rumblings, here to talk about the Buffalo Bills, Jeff Kantrowski, also known as Scarecrow. How did you get that name?
So, if you could see a little bit of me, I grew up pretty quickly height-wise, but not weight-wise. So I've been this approximate 6 foot tall height since about 6th, 7th grade. But imagine me about 40 pounds lighter. And the nickname starts to make sense. And then, long heavy metal hair back in the 90s. So, I could see the straw man comparison for sure.
There you go. So the Buffalo Bills facing the Steelers this week. Buffalo's coming off last season that had a very disappointing, even controversial end in an overtime playoff game. Coming to this season, Buffalo bolstered their defense and again looks to be one of the top, or if not the top defense in the NFL. Is this Buffalo team living on Super Bowl expectations here? Or is this a team is this like a Super Bowl or bust team? Or is there still a window here that if they don't quite make it this year, it's okay?
I'm not sure Super Bowl or bust, but Super Bowl or a hell of a lot of crying. We're going to have so many disappointed fans if they don't at least get there. Winning would certainly be the preference. But yeah, last few years, you mentioned the defense. Under Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, they've always had top-notch defense in most metrics. But, acquired Von Miller during the offseason, made some swaps on the interior defensive line. And, yeah, they're trying to take it to yet another level with that defense. To hopefully push them just a little bit closer to the brink there.
First and foremost, I got to say thank you to Jeff for coming on tonight. We was coming up against the deadline and was like, hopefully we're going to be able to get somebody on here to then as an expert on all, because we really want to talk about it. And then we sent out the bat signal, and then our buddy Jeff, the one and only Scarecrow, shows up and answers that signal. So, first of all, thank you for that.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And yeah, one of the things I do love about the Vox Media Network and SB Nation in particular is we can have these friendly rivalries. I know I picked on the other Geoffrey earlier, but, I'm okay with the French spelling. And, we go German and Godfrey if you want, whatever. It's all Jeff to me. So, friendly rivalries where it's at.
We had a lot of conversations this week with Bills fans. And some of the teams we play, the Steelers will play, it's just a heated rivalry. There's a lot of the hatred on both sides. But I mentioned it today on our site that, everybody's been so respectful. And I think the reason why is the Bills have went to the 4 Super Bowls, which was unbelievable in a row. I mean, that was unbelievable. I rooted for them in every single Super Bowl, and I was disappointed right along with the rest of the Bills fans. And I think that if the Steelers aren't playing the Bills or vice versa, I think there is a mutual respect for both organizations.
Absolutely.
And I we look at Josh Allen and we see young Big Ben, the similarities there. And we know what Ben meant to the Steelers and the Steeler Nation, and we can love Josh Allen. I have a special place in my heart for Jim Kelly, because when Ben was going through some youthful ignorance, let's just say,
good way to
Jim
put it.
Kelly invited him to his home, took him hunting, taught him how to be a man, showed him, how to handle being a superstar quarterback in the NFL.
Sure.
Jim Kelly has a special place in my heart because of what he did for Ben and their how much they care for each other. But I wanted to get that out of the way right off the beginning because for the Bills and the fan base, because it's easy to be a fan when you're always winning.
Right. Yeah.
But when you lose 4 in a row and the fan base stays loyal, and that says something about the fans. So much respect there. One of the things I wanted to ask, to me, Josh Allen is unlike any quarterback in the NFL in that he is a power runner at quarterback. And I've said their running game doesn't scare me, but Josh Allen running does scare me.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And when you couple that with that cannon of an arm and everything else, how have you seen his growth this year compared to last year? Because it was such a bitter loss, and he did all he could. It wasn't his fault.
Right.
But it seems like he's come back even more determined because he was getting in fights at joint practices and maybe even got in a scuffle with a teammate. Are you seeing more of an edge this year?
That's tough to say because he's always had that edge. Draft night, I mean, the most classic Josh Allen clip, draft night, a fan, he's being interviewed by one of our local reporters, and a fan throws him a hat to sign from, I think, second deck, of the draft room. He signs it, throws it back right up into the guy's hands, looks at the camera, and says just one word: accuracy. Yeah, he's always had that chip on his shoulder. He knew pre-draft everyone's knocking on him for accuracy and ball placement. And, the first real on-air interview he does as a member of the Buffalo Bills, he's already calling out the reporters. So, he tries to have this humble attitude, which plays very well to the media. Like, no, I let it roll off my back. I'm not worried about it. But you can tell every tiny little bit of criticism he takes to heart. And rather than going to this rage and clouds his judgment, he takes it and brings back this laser focus. So it's hard for me to say he has more edge because I think from day one, he's always been that guy. But again, focusing in what I would say is the right way. So he had a near MVP season a couple of years ago. And, last year, some discussion around the same. He didn't get any votes, but, it's hard to say, how could he improve from those? It's just kind of the normal ebbs and flows of superstardom. But yeah, he's come back just as determined. And, I think if you're looking for something that does show he's trying to take that next step, you added some new players this offseason, on the offensive side, and does not change the chemistry. It looks like he's comfortable with them for day one, pretty much zero play time in the preseason, comes out and just burns down the Rams in their house. So I don't know if you could really, again, like I said, say that he's more intense, but he's definitely harnessed that intensity and kind of quiet rage almost to his behind the veneer, play style.
Now, Josh Allen, his first season at quarterback, struggled a lot. Second season improved a lot, but still, wasn't the Josh Allen we see today. And then his third season, Stefon Diggs arrives. And since then, they've been, for Steeler fans, it's a pretty easy comparison to Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger because they seem to just have, they know where the other person is. They know what the other person's thinking. How important is Stefon Diggs to the development of Josh Allen, and how important is he to, Josh Allen now?
Yeah, so to develop, to your point, I was a bit controversial for his first 2 years because I called him out very bluntly. Year one, he showed flashes of potential, but year one, when you look at the metrics, you look at the stats, just simply not good enough. That's not the quarterback you want when you're drafting somebody in the first round. Again, he gets a pass. He's a rookie. Year two, as you mentioned, he improved, but compared to league average, he was still a pretty mediocre quarterback for most measures. So Diggs arrives, he makes that leap. And to your point, how important was Diggs to have that safety valve and to psychologically take the pressure off of, I need to make every play, I need to make something happen every down, I think was important. And Diggs being able to provide that outlet. You added Cole Beasley, who added another element of that, where you have those safety valves, those players you can count on, and really kind of change your mentality to, I can look around a little bit longer, I can let the play develop as designed. So early on, year three, absolutely those changes were huge. And that's the overall jump in talent. I mean, you had him throwing to Kelvin Benjamin one year. not even peak Kelvin Benjamin. He looked like he's mentally checked out. He was a player I thought had good athletic potential, good physical presence on the field. But by the time he got to Buffalo, he just didn't look like he was the same player anymore. And then you compare even peak Kelvin Benjamin to peak Stefon Diggs is no comparison. So early on, I think that's huge. And then for what he means to him today and for this season, you just have that psychological edge, knowing that somebody that you're that close with, that you have that chemistry with, is going to battle, so to speak, with you at the same time. And I think having that kind of security blanket or that camaraderie is still important for the team. And I still think it helps who their identity is and focus on the field. And then, I mean, player that caliber, I don't care what team you are, I don't care who's behind center, to add somebody that caliber is always a huge gain. Just, to have that superstar next to you.
I think we all had it circled on the calendar when we seen this game coming up was, Mitch Trubisky going back to Buffalo.
Right.
And he speaks so highly of Buffalo and how much he learned there. And he felt like he grew as a quarterback. And so that's why we was all so excited when the Steelers signed him in free agency. And I really believe that Buffalo would have liked to have him back, if it would have been an option. But,
right.
Some of the things that popped up in Chicago, we seen the first three and beginning last week out of, and he was just, if you design the play and the play goes according to design, especially if he's on the move, he is so effective.
Right.
And he just looks so good. But if he gets caught in the pocket and his first read ain't there, and especially where he didn't trust the offensive line a lot because of the way the preseason went down, we started to see these limitations. And then, so now, what I was looking forward to, seeing Trubisky play against Buffalo, now y'all get to prepare for Kenny Pickett.
Right.
I will say that Pickett, he processes. He's like an elite point guard, and that he not only distributes the ball, he distributes it accurately, on time, in rhythm, where guys can do something with it. And so, what have you heard people talking about Pickett in preparations to play him this week?
So yeah, a lot of it is kind of an incomplete. I checked out some stats prior to coming on, and 13 pass attempts, in half a game is not a very large volume against full speed NFL or defenses. Mm-hmm. So incomplete is mostly what I'm hearing. But the one thing that I think surprises me, and I'm going to be doing probably an opponent preview that I do every week. I'm probably going to do that on Kenny Pickett because I want to get a much more focused version of that for myself. But when you take a look at the stat sheet, 3 interceptions jumps off like this big sore thumb. And then when you expect to hear the chatter on a player like that, it should typically be how poorly they played. And I'm not hearing that about Pickett at all from really anybody I'm connected with on social media. And I'm hearing a lot of explanations for those 3 interceptions were, tip passes or things that really are out of his control. And a lot of the focus is on the positive, which, is very surprising if you compare the box score to the conversation that's surrounding him. So I'm looking forward to checking out the film myself. I haven't had a chance to do that really much this week for non-Bills football, that is. I've already dove into the Ravens game a few times. So, that's intriguing to me. And I want to take a look at specifically the things you mentioned. To me, one of the things rookie Josh Allen struggled with was ball placement. He's getting to the receivers. Completion percentage was okay at times. But where is he hitting them? Are they able to run? Are they able to do something with it? They put in danger from those passes, those kinds of things. So I want to see those types of things with Pickett as well, and just take a look at it and see where we're at. But positive chatter for somebody with that box score, so that's intriguing to me.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've been digging into Kenny Pickett's film, looking at all of his passes. I just did one. We just did a article. One guy and I, we do a article where we do stats and then film. Yeah, and we did it on George Pickens and the George Pickens Kenny Pickett connection compared to what he was able to do with Trubisky, who I'd say Trubisky wasn't placing the ball greatly. Like, he wasn't doing really great jobs of ball placement, and Kenny Pickett was putting it, really giving his receivers a chance to go get the ball, really giving them those chances. And it stands out that none of his balls hit the ground. Not a single ball hit the ground, and 2 of the 3 interceptions hit his receiver's hands.
Right.
So he was placing it well. I will say, I know there's a lot of people out there, and I commented this on Twitter, that are like, if you say, okay, those two interceptions before the Hail Mary, they weren't the best decisions, but they were still like not terrible throws, and people will jump on you for that, because Kenny Pickett's tiny hands throws nothing but perfect passes.
Right.
But he did have a few rookie mistakes.
Yeah, nuance does not have a lot of fans in the football world sometimes. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm looking for in this game is we're going to see some rookie mistakes. We're going to see some of those throws where in the heat of the moment, he makes a throw that would have worked at Pitt, that would have worked in the ACC, and isn't going to work against the Buffalo Bills. So my question for you is, obviously Jordan Poyer's on the injury report. What kind of how dangerous are the Bills to turn rookie mistakes into turnovers and maybe even points going the other way?
Incredibly dangerous. So one of the things I did want to focus on, I'm a big fan of rate stats. So I did take a look at some of those just to make sure I had my facts completely straight. I don't want to be torn apart by those fans who don't want the nuance, to jump on one of my ill-conceived facts. But first off, props to the Pittsburgh defense, because, I wanted to check both sides of the stats. I think you're 4th in interception rate. Yeah. So that's pretty great. And I'm going to just turn that into a humble brag, because the Bills are number 1 in interception rate. And to back that up even further, they're number 2 in sack per pass attempts, which, the third kind of fact I want to look up to kind of bundle those 3 together is 8.8% is their blitz rate, which is by far the lowest in the league. So they're hitting home a lot. 1 out of every 9 pass attempts, they're bringing the quarterback down, and they're doing it with only rushing 4. So when you're talking about those rookie mistakes, that means a lot of times you're having 7 players who are all usually pretty fast. The Buffalo defense is usually a 3-3-5 nickel. Usually 4-2-5. Sorry, and they sprinkle in some 3-3-5. On occasion, though, Von Miller, I've even seen drop back into pass coverage. Tremaine Edmonds has done tremendous in pass coverage as well. So you get a lot of fast players. Taron Johnson is very underrated slot cornerback. And any little bounce, there are usually 7 guys in coverage, often in zone. So they're looking for those passes. They're looking for those tips. They're looking for what the quarterback's going to do. And 7 sets of eyes to, 4 to 5 receiving targets. They can win that numbers game quite a bit. So I know going back to the social media chatter, a lot of people are in love with the idea of facing a rookie quarterback, just because usually the stats bear out pretty successful defensive day.
Yeah, I think that the Von Miller acquisition was just brilliant with a team that a true Super Bowl contender and with such a elite. A lot of people don't talk about dominant defense, last year with the Bills, but they were so consistent and fundamental and solid, number 1. And that is dominant now. You don't see the dominance of the Steel Curtain or the Bears, 85 Bears. Defenses are different now because of the way the rule changes, and there's all these new offenses that they find and exploit mismatches. And really, it's hard to do that. If you watch the Bills defense on tape, there's really hard to find a mismatch. Now the Steelers, the middle of the field is always wide open. And anybody that, that will exploit that can have a field day. Last year, the Bills just did not try to run at all. And they did the Steelers a favor. But without TJ Watt, in his ability to elevate everyone around him, and that pass rush gets home and creates havoc, they're exposed, especially in the middle of the field. Who do you think the Steelers need to be worried about the most in the middle of the field? Is it Knox, or is it, McKenzie, which I know he's got a concussion? Who do you think would be the biggest threat right there?
Yeah, Knox is going to be huge, but they don't always go to him over the middle of the field. So it depends on the game plan, and they do tend to vary things up. The biggest threat I think you actually have middle of the field is is Josh Allen. I think if he finds any little gap and they put their attention elsewhere, that's big. And to your point, last year with the run game, one of the historical weaknesses for this version of the Bills under Sean McDermott is the power run game. So I'm not sure they could have really exploited the run game very well against Pittsburgh last year, even if they had been trying, which again, as you mentioned, they really did not. So depends on what they want to scheme. And another surprise answer, they have been sprinkling in Stefon Diggs at slot receiver quite a bit this year. So they're trying to mix and match him all over the field to exploit that. So, you remove Watt from the field and you open up that middle, and I would not be surprised to see him get some touches there. You mentioned McKenzie's out or could be out potentially with a concussion or limited, so who could step in to take that role? They had a field day last year against the Patriots with McKenzie. He's kind of a surprise player. So they brought him up kind of spontaneously, for the one game, sprinkled heavy doses of him in, and he just had an amazing game there. So, the usual names certainly come up, but, they do pride themselves on creativity and versatility, on this. So pick your poison, and it depends on what Ken Dorsey and Sean McDermott want to throw at you on Sunday.
Looking at the stat sheet and thinking about the run game, which the Steelers are again struggling to stop the run this year. Josh Allen has 4 fewer carries than Devin Singletary and significantly more yards. Is this almost like a Lamar Jackson? Like, I know the Ravens are very run heavy, and then Lamar Jackson is also one of their main runners. The Bills are not run heavy, but is Josh Allen kind of your main running back on this team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I alluded to that just a moment ago with the lack of a power running game. So sometimes they try and shoehorn that in, and Devin Singletary is not big enough to make that work. So he's not vintage Frank Gore or anything like that. Zach Moss, for some reason, a lot of people think of him as kind of bringing the thunder, but we've yet to see it. And even when I checked his college film when he came to the Bills originally, again, not a power runner. So there really is no running back on the team that could provide that power, push to that. So they got to finesse it, and they've had some injuries along the offensive line. They've had a couple things happening with players developing, and again, a new offensive coordinator. So developing this the run game has been a little slow. Devin Singletary's, in my opinion, their best true running back, but he does need a bit of a seam, and he does need a little bit of space to operate in a lot of cases. So the big difference with Josh Allen is that he's gigantic. He's way bigger than most of the running backs. He will push a couple players if he needs to. He's tall enough to, as we've seen numerous times, jump over players. And he's, unlike a running back, able to pick his spot. So, if the play calls get the ball to Singletary, he's getting the ball, he's going where the play's designed, and that's what's going to happen. Where with Josh Allen, it's often more spontaneous, and he's only doing it if there's something there. So by far, probably their most dangerous running back, to the point where even, we had a controversial pick with his draft with the Giants taking a running back very high. And my initial joke for the first years was, well, you wasted a pick because we got the best running back too. We got a quarterback and the best running back in the draft. So just that kind of lethality. So there's definitely some similarities to Lamar Jackson in that dual threat role. But as a team, the Ravens bring a little more balance to the rest of their room. So I think they're a more dynamic running threat, where with the Bills, if they show you run with one of the running backs, more than likely, you have an edge there.
What do you think is the biggest still hole that the Bills have on offense? I know we just talked about the power running. But of course, Allen makes up for a lot of that.
Right.
But if there's one thing that you think that, with the trade deadline and everything like that, where being such a serious contender, if there was one thing you could add to that Bills offense that you think could put that offense over the top, what would it be?
That's tough. I think if we could pick anybody in the league, maybe I'm grabbing a right tackle. If I could pick anyone from there. Spencer Brown, last year looked very dynamic in the role, but this year, potentially due to a back injury he had during the offseason, I believe it was, not quite as good as he looked last year, and definitely some pressure from the right side that we don't like seeing. As dynamic and amazing as Josh Allen is running, we'd rather have him throwing the ball. Your yards per player a little bit higher there, usually a little bit higher threat there. So you give him a little extra time and things open up even more. And, the Miami game, that was a big struggle. That was a big reason why the Bills couldn't pull that out as a victory, getting that pressure. So if you had to give me any player in the league, I'm probably going to look around for right tackles that I'm willing to spend maybe a little extra money on. But aside from that, the skill positions that I referenced, our running back room, they're not big bruising type backs. I'm okay with that. You can set up a zone scheme. You can set up, different gaps with different play calls as long as your players can execute. So you get some more athleticism, some more power on the line. And I think Devin Singletary is going to look just fine.
Looking at the defense, Gregory Rousseau came in last year, had 4 sacks in the entire season. This year he has 4 sacks 4 games in.
Right.
How much of that is his development, and how much of that is the defense around him and the addition, of Von Miller on the other side?
Yeah, so it's both those things. I'm going to add a third thing in. Von Miller on the other side is huge. I love Jerry Hughes, and if he's listening right now, I've had your back for years. I'll prove it with whatever articles I got to show that I've written about you. Jerry Hughes is one of my favorite players of all time to wear a Buffalo Bills uniform. But for the first time last year, when we did our after season analysis, I wrote down, love to have him, but only if the price is right. It's the first time I ever wrote those words about Jerry Hughes. So Father Time is, the victor against everybody. And his time's unfortunately maybe coming to an end. So Von Miller, the same cannot be said with that. So that is huge. Having a player Hall of Fame caliber on the other side. How do you not try to account for that? And how is that not going to open things up? But, in addition to that, in Rousseau or Groot, as he goes by developing on his own and really just increasing his own skill set, is the defense itself. So the Bills have always wanted to rush with 4 and hit home. It's something that they've tried to do the last few years. But one of the things that they've often leaned into is more contain. So they really haven't allowed their defensive ends or their edge players to attack as much as a lot of people may have liked. So you'll see them kind of spread out and just kind of sit there, waiting to see what the quarterback's going to do, make sure that nothing happens. Where now I think they're attacking a lot more. I think they have a little more freedom to go after the quarterback, and the players are just eating it up. It looks like they're having a lot of fun and just going after it.
That last question I asked about the offense kind of was the lead into this one, because I've had him on my fantasy team for a couple of years now. And Gabe Davis, he'll have some monster games. And, you look like that's the complimentary guy they need outside there to help Diggs. Right. And it seems like he has such great chemistry. That playoff game against the Chiefs, he lit him up. And in other games, he kind of disappears. And then I'll check it out to see what happened, and there'll be like a nagging injury or this or that. There's always seems like there's something. What do you think is holding him back? Because it seems like the only thing he needs is consistency.
Yeah, and to your point, definitely some injuries have hampered him, and some of it is, he plays like he's a vet, but he's still pretty fresh. He's not been in the league that long, and so I think some of that stuff just still has to develop naturally. Usually for a lot of the skill position players, you look for year 3, typically speaking. So, we're about the point where we want him to break out, and we're expecting to see that development take its natural course. But again, this year, the injuries have been the biggest factor. But prior seasons, go the way Josh Allen goes. So some games he will hone in. I referenced the Patriots game earlier. For some reason, he and McKenzie just blew up. That game was just dynamite for the both of them. And you mentioned the Gabe Davis against the Kansas City last year in the playoffs. Similar kind of blow up. You get that with Josh Allen. If he sees that you're open all day, he's going to take it all day. So you definitely see those ebbs and flows. You see that even with Stefon Diggs. But because he's kind of a household name at this point, you don't generally see people calling out the ebbs and flows as much. But for sure, I do think Gabe Davis could become a more consistent threat. And part of that, like I said, just natural development, I think will do that. And, being more integrated into the team. And final thought on that, we did see some fluctuating snap counts for him in his first couple seasons. And that's a huge difference too. So for the Bills, he was more of a game plan specific player. So, some games he's close to, I call it the 100% club, the players who are on the field the whole time. Other games, he's lucky to hit 50, so that your play time is huge for a wide receiver. You can't get targets if you're on the bench. So a lot of factors, but injuries, hopefully they'll resolve and we'll get that consistent player we're all hoping for. And for your sake, I hope he helps you win some fantasy championships.
All right. On the injury report, we have Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer.
Sorry, hold on one second.
Are either of those players expected to play?
I'm sorry, which two play? I had something. My phone was going off on the side. I didn't want that to cause a distraction.
Oh, that's fine. With Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds, I believe both missing practice. Are either of those a real threat to miss this game, or are they expected to be back?
So that's one area I don't monitor as closely as maybe I should. But the current reaction I'm getting doesn't seem to be too worried about either of those players. Poyer specifically will play through whatever he can. He's definitely demonstrated that toughness over the years. And Tremaine Edmonds is coming up kind of almost as a surprise. So, you never know with any of those players, but if they're on the report, there is a reason. And the Bills generally don't monkey around with that. They don't like to do a whole lot of shenanigans. So what you see is a pretty good reflection. But my current feeling is we're not too worried about them, but I hope I'm not wrong.
Okay, and to follow up on that, with Jordan Poyer specifically, he's a very, very good safety. And if he's out, what does that open up? What does that mean for the Bills? Like, how does that affect their defense?
Yeah, one of the biggest things, obviously, you take any one of 11 players off the field when they're that level. It's a direct impact on that particular position and the player below them and the quality of play. But for the Bills specifically in 2022, it is a major issue in addition to that. So you are lacking some of your veteran presence on the back end. Tre'Davious White is still out after an injury last Thanksgiving. Micah Hyde, unfortunately, also put on IR earlier in the season. So there's your other, in my opinion, all-pro caliber player on the back end. So you have, three, in my opinion, again, all-pro players for your secondary. Two of the three are gone. You drop the third one. Your communication drops. Your ability to cover mistakes for some of the younger guys goes down, and it just has that ripple effect for everybody. So three players of that caliber being out in one game is not something I like to see.
It's no secret that the Steelers were enamored with Tremaine Edmonds, in that draft cycle.
Yeah.
And looking at him, and just, all the Edmonds are athletic, but he's got the size, the speed. And so, we don't get to follow the Bills like you do, but, I'll check and see what's happening. What kind of game did he have? Because they're all really good guys. That's a top-notch group of guys right there, that family. But he doesn't seem like he's hit in the NFL like we thought he was capable of. But that's from the outside looking in. You having the insider information, what do you think of how he's progressing and developing?
So, yeah, you're going to get a definitely opinion-based answer because for the Bills fans, he's probably the most polarizing guy. And he gets a lot more love outside of Buffalo than inside for whatever reason. And a lot of it is people have this, kind of old school thumping linebacker in their head that they want to see. So you don't really have that type of player need in the current NFL. And the Bills really wanted him for his range and speed. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things I do every year is I double check the yards per play metric. And for most of the years recently, your absolute best team running the ball is still nowhere near as good on a yards per play metric as the worst team passing the ball. So the game is skewed so much towards the passing game. If you have to pick your poison, and for most players you will, they're either going to be, pass dominant or rush dominant. You pick the pass guy, in my opinion. You pick the guy who's going to give you that pass edge. And Tremaine Edmonds, to me, does that. He's incredibly fast, and he's deceptively fast because he's just so big and so rangy. His arms look like they could stretch half across the field and shuts down huge chunks of the field just by existing in them, which is, something you absolutely love to have in the current NFL. Big knock against him for most fans is the lack of impact plays. And coming back to scheme again, most of the time, if you look at what appears to be his assignment for past years, is kind of step back and assess the field and react to it, which doesn't lead to a lot of your impact plays, for a linebacker. And this year, he's not having to do that as much because the defensive line is a little better at pushing. They're a little better at creating opportunities on their own and keeping him clean. So you're seeing more. One play comes to mind. I just did an analysis where, Lamar Jackson is dropping back to pass, and they got him as a free rusher. So you have Tremaine Edmonds, who looks like he's 8 foot tall and barreling down on Lamar Jackson at 90 miles an hour. Like, oh my God, how did they scheme that open? And, now he's getting those splash plays. So I think he's finally coming into his own, to the satisfaction of Bills fans. But for most of his career, it's been that polarizing player.
We understand. I know Jimmy's thinking the same thing I am, because his brother is viewed the same way in Pittsburgh as a solid player, but he don't make enough splash plays.
Right.
And then we have Devin Bush, who is a coverage linebacker, a move linebacker, who's not a thumper enough for somebody like myself. So you've got one guy that kind of encapsulates as two guys we have, but
right.
But I thought that was funny. I had to mention it.
Yeah, I was absolutely thinking the same thing. Like Terrell Edmonds doesn't show up at all when you watch the TV game. You look at the stat sheet, and then you watch the film, and you're like, oh no, you just see the quarterback being like, nope, that's covered. Nope, that's covered. Yeah. Next play, nope, that's covered. Just absolutely erasing chunks of the field, which is. I'm a big fan of that. I love the two Edmonds brothers. Those two Edmonds brothers.
Modern stats have caught up to the modern linebackers. It's not all about tackles anymore. So yeah, he certainly gets his share, but that's not the measurement I care about. I want to know how many times, like you mentioned, the quarterback is looking around the field and says, "That ain't happening." If there's a way to capture that stat, I'd love to calculate that one.
That would be that. See, now you're gonna have me thinking about that. Would be a great one. Is go through, watch, and be like, how many times does the quarterback look that guy's way, and then looked off? That'd be a great thing to actually try and track.
Good luck.
Yeah. Like I always tell people, if you could just give me like $1 billion and 50 interns and like access to all the all 22 film. Right. I'd have some interesting stuff I could come up with.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And that's actually one of the modern boons is, I'll say guys like me, I don't want to insinuate anything about the two of you, but guys like me who have a full-time job elsewhere and, we're not your traditional analysts or football professionals, but that doesn't mean we don't have good ideas and we can kind of crowdsource and come together and come up with things and make some improvements on how we watch and view things. And it's kind of wild. Some of the stuff that I started talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago are now becoming mainstream kind of metrics or discussion points, in a lot of ways, where we're finding that the NFL was tracking it, but not really using it. But now that we've brought it up, we've come to light, so I think hopefully, guys like me, maybe you, again, I don't want to insinuate anything. I'm putting myself down a little bit, but there is a role for us in kind of shaping how things are looked at, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. I want to get to our predictions for this game. I was joking around before the show. I told you that maybe that'd be a great thing if the teams just decide to leave their first team defenses home, since both teams have a bunch of banged up defenders. We both teams have a bunch of guys sitting there that are going to play that aren't in the best shape. And I said we just leave them home and do a good old fashioned shootout, but that's not going to happen.
No.
So we have to look here and say, I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to. I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to put you right here on the spot.
Yeah. No, that doesn't sound like a privilege at this point. It sounds like
Do you have a prediction for us for this game? The score for this game?
I'm not usually a type of guy who does scores. Kind of think it's bad luck, but if I got it, I got it. I don't know what the Vegas spread is currently at, but it was not good for the Steelers.
No, it's not. It was like 14, I think.
It opened at 14, I think, and then went down to So, yeah, I'm probably going to roll with something pretty close to that. With the Bills, when they win, it's usually by a lot.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett, I haven't looked at the film yet, but the track record is not good. On paper, it should be fairly lopsided. Nothing against Pittsburgh, hell of a program for a lot of years, but this definitely looks like a reset year, and you're missing some key players. I mean, we are too, for sure, but you got Josh Allen, you got Stefon Diggs still that can mask a lot of flaws. Even if we are missing Jordan Poyer on the defensive side, Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott have some sort of defensive back magic wand. They pull guys out of the scrap heap, and they look like all pros. So I don't know if I want to go with an exact prediction, but I would not be terribly surprised if they cover the spread there. Depends on how bad it gets quickly, but the reason I'm hesitant to give numbers is I still remember the Jacksonville game last year. So I do not want anybody replaying this footage in a Jacksonville type situation. So, if I had to put this down on numbers, I don't know what the over under is. Usually Vegas is pretty close to accurate. So let's say something like 17-31, something like that to cover the spread.
Okay. Shannon.
Well, before Pickett come in last week, and I was thinking about this game, I had scores like 41-10 in my head, Bills. And, I watched Buffalo dismantle the Titans. Absolute slaughter, the worst I've seen this year. And that was scary. You see the potential that they have this year. And they're a true contender and maybe the favorite. And the Steelers, as you said, it's rebuilding. But I think the Kenny Pickett factor, then that I do think that the offense can move the ball and can put points on the board. There will be exciting plays. There will be, rookie mistakes. But I think that he's going to surprise everybody and actually cover. And I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of 35-24. Now, it could be a field goal in there, and then they would be able to cover, 38-24. But I'm thinking that like 35-24, and Pickett won't be able to win it, but he will help them cover.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of hope for this game. Without TJ Watt, the Steelers cannot.
They can't win.
Cannot get pressure with 4 players. Our secondary is bang. We may be missing most of the entire starting secondary is on the injury report. If you can't get pressure,
I can relate.
If you're facing Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs or not, like if you're facing Josh Allen and you can't pressure him with 4, and your secondary is not 100%, that's a recipe for a very bad day at the office. If he can sit back there, the dude has an absolute cannon. He can hit the pass anywhere on the field he wants to. If you're pushing to try and get some kind of pressure, he's going to escape. He's going to escape the pocket and run on you. It's so bad facing him when you can't get pressure with 4, and the Steelers cannot. So right there, that tells me there's no way the Steelers are winning this game. There really isn't, because they're not going to be able to stop Josh Allen. They're not going to be able to stop him. Hopefully, they'll have Miles Jack or Devin Bush just spy on him, keep him in the pocket, and make him beat him with his arm, which still isn't a great, that's not a great thing to go. Yeah, make Josh Allen beat you with his arm. Yeah, very few players have that arm. I do have hope for Kenny Pickett, but this, for your first start, going against the Buffalo Bills versus coming in at halftime against the New York Jets, who were prepared for Mitchell Trubisky, is a world of difference. That is a world of difference. And as much as I love Kenny Pickett and what he brought, the spark he brought, the accuracy he brought, getting passes out in rhythm, seeing the field the way he does, I think he's got a great future. But this is game 1. This is his first start, really first start. And Ben Roethlisberger, his first game, he threw 2 interceptions. when he came in at half in the middle of the game. The next game, he came out and threw an interception with his first pass and his first start. Like, you're going to see rookie mistakes from Kenny Pickett. I mean, Josh Allen threw interceptions he threw 2 in his first start, right? You're going to see those, and you can't make that margin of error against the Bills. I think this one's going to be ugly. I think we're going to see a defensive touchdown and for the Bills. And I think we're going to see, something like 30-13, 30-17, somewhere around the range you had it. I think that's an accurate call. And I could see the Bills scoring 40 in this game. Which is not fun.
Let me give you a hopeful thought. Yeah, so actually a couple of hopeful thoughts. Biggest thing when the Bills are struggling is because the Bills are beating themselves. That is something they're very much capable of. But then I'm a big martial arts fan for people who've read my work over the years. And there's a saying in Japanese swordsmanship, which roughly translates to the most dangerous opponent is the person who's never trained. So in football terms, you alluded to it. He comes in halftime against the Jets, and the Jets, they don't have film on him. They don't know what to expect out of him, and that makes a person very dangerous. So, against the Bills, yeah, it is his first start, but there's really not much to go from that. So that could hopefully lead to some exciting plays for you, and I'm hoping your predictions are right for the record. But you never want a boring game. You never want a game where it's over by the end of the first quarter and everybody knows it. You don't want to see that. So hopefully we'll get an exciting game. And again, I hope your predictions are just as right as mine was.
So I'm gonna give this for the people listening, for the Steeler fans at home, so we don't completely bum you out with our predictions. Like you said, the Bills do have times where they outplay themselves. If the Bills' offense is out of sync enough that this defense can hang with them, the hope we have for the Steelers is that George Pickens, Kenny Pickett connection. They were 4 for 4 for 71 yards in one half of a game. If all of a sudden they're breaking some plays, you're getting some big plays there. If you're putting people out of the box, maybe you get the run game going. Who knows? Like, the stuff can happen there. There is hope, but the Bills are going to have to help them out a little. The Bills are going to have to not play a great game.
But the Bills are dealing with injuries on defense also.
They are.
So that's why I feel like the Steelers with Pickett could score a little more and maybe be able to cover.
Yeah, give you a little bit of a moral victory.
Right.
Hey, that's what it's about when you're rebuilding.
Those count for fans. For fans, we're allowed to count those. As a Bills fan, trust me, 17 years of drought. We cheered on. Was it the Seattle Mariners finally broke their drought? Was it this week? I'm not.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bills fans, we came in solidarity because we know that feeling. So yeah, 17-year drought. We know about moral victories. It's okay to take them. I will support you 100%.
All right, man. Let everyone know who's listening where they can read your stuff, find you on Twitter, wherever you put content.
Yeah, so easiest way to find me is on BuffaloRumblings.com. So another one of the SB Nation sites. That's the easiest way to do that. I'm starting to break into YouTube a little bit, putting some video content out there. And if you follow me on Twitter, it's probably a poor choice because I don't stick to football. So you're going to have to deal with my shenanigans that are unrelated. So BuffaloRumblings.com is the best place to find me right now.
All right. Thank you so much. Shannon, What do you have coming out for the people?
Well, I didn't do my weekly rookie review article this year because it didn't look like as many of the rookies from this draft class was going to be contributing on a weekly basis. So I'm doing it quarterly. So I'm working on the first quarter, and how each guy's doing. Thankfully, Pickett, got in there towards the end of that. So, we'll be able to talk about him a little bit now, but that should be dropping sometime tomorrow, maybe.
All right. I got to ask you, 17 games. If you're doing quarterly reports, where's the extra game go?
Well, like I said, it'll be the 5th game at the end. So,
okay, you'll fit that in at the end. All right.
You cut the film after 15 minutes of the first game 5.
Yeah, I feel like it drives me crazy because I'm a stats guy. And I loved the quarterly updates on the season. Look and say, where are they? And now I don't feel
we can't do it no more.
Valid. Like, you're like, how can you do that? There's 17 games. You can't divide a 17. That's a prime number. You can't divide it up at all. Well, for everyone, for me, I have the Vertex came out. Make sure you check out behindthesteelcurtain.com. Our Vertex article Dave and I worked on is about George Pickens and the difference we saw between him, Kenny Pickett, and Mitch Trubisky throwing him the ball. I've got one coming out here. I just forgot what it was about. Man, I boom, skipped my brain. I don't know. Anyways, I've got a film room coming out probably tomorrow or Friday on something that's going to drive me crazy.
We're older than you, Jeff. We're older than you. We forget things.
Brains don't function. All right. Anyways, that is our show. Thank you so much to Jeff. I'm going to say it wrong now.
It's okay.
Kantrowski?
You got it.
Yes, Jeff.
Very phonetic.
Scarecrow, baby.
There you go.
Scarecrow, thank you so much for coming on, talking Bills with us. It's been a great time talking to you. Thank you, Shannon, as always, for being here. Thank you to everyone in the live chat getting your comments. Always enjoy reading them and drawing inspiration from your comments for the show. And to everyone listening on the podcast platform, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for clicking over to the website and spending your days and your football energy with us here at Behind the Steel Curtain. As always, have a great week, and let's go Steelers.